things are escalating as the Trump administration could be facing jail time over this Epstein cover-up. But what everyone is missing is going to change how you see all of it. But before we get into all of that, massive YouTuber Penguin Zero Charlie has a great clip showing us exactly the words we're going to find in the Epstein files. It's wild. Let's check it out right now. Here it is.
Finally, all of the information on all of these evil pedophiles right here at our fingertips. We get one sentence and then pretty much everything else redacted. And this isn't some isolated incident where I'm cherry picking shit. The bulk of these files are heavily redacted, and heavily doesn't even do it justice.
There's literally, the government is in the criminal. That's what we know from the Epstein files. That's wow.
The government.
Yeah.
So beyond that, like it is redacted to a comical degree where it would be laughable if it wasn't just so blatantly evil. Like, look at the thumbnail here. You could close your eyes and see the same thing that these files show you, which is just nothing. Darkness.
He's just like roasting the government on that. And you like have to make fun of it because it's so freaking bad.
Go back to that where it just shows the thumbnail. Like that, literally, these are
gosh. I thought it was a meme. I thought it was a meme at first. It's like, there's no, like, I thought that they were going to be heavily redacted, and I was like, this is going to be, it's going to look like cover up, like it's not going to be justice for survivors. This is going to be bad. And then I saw, like, I think on like the news channel, someone like flipping for their phone, and it was like all of those. And I was like, that's a meme. That's like AI.
It's not real.
It's not. And sure
but
enough.
It is real. Actually, yeah, let's see some of the comments.
Oh my gosh, these comments are
pretty fire.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to hide. Hides everything.
There's never been a more righteous job for hackers up until now.
Amen. Go get them. This is funny. It's just someone redacted their comment. Situation is crazy. I was reading the Epstein files for about an hour, and finally it hit me that my phone was dead the entire time, and I was just staring at a black screen.
Oh my gosh, guys, this is insane. Like, it is so freaking bad. And we had to just start off with something that was a little lighter because this is so frustrating. But now we're going to get into what everyone is missing about the Epstein cover-up and the potential jail time the Trump administration might be facing. But first, the call out in the comments is needed, and for some, this isn't new at all. Independent reporter and attorney Aaron Parnas has been working with Epstein survivors throughout this process and actually made this call out.
The White House and the Department of Justice are actively engaging in a cover-up over the Epstein files, but folks, this is exactly what the survivors have been experiencing for years, if not decades. Because of
such a good point.
Dang.
Like, for decades, they've been trying to get this information out. And it's always like, we're finally feeling the frustration and the anger and like all of that they've been literally experiencing forever. And they're the ones that this actually happened to.
Yeah.
Over the course of 5 administrations, many of them have fought to try to get their own records. They fought to get these released. They haven't been able to. Every single time they came close, a government official, government administration, government agency protected the wealthy and the powerful. They didn't get documents. They got fully redacted documents, FOIA requested and go through. This is nothing new.
And what's frustrating is like they're requesting their own files. It's not like they were requesting like other people's and that they still couldn't get them.
It's why Maria Farmer back in 1996, she accused Jeffrey Epstein. She made a complaint to the FBI. For decades, everyone told her she was lying. She wasn't lying. She was telling the truth. And we learned that with her release. The complaint was released publicly.
Which we'll get to in just a moment.
Many people are now experiencing what these survivors have experienced for so long. And it's why even many survivors publicly have kept expectations low. And it's why we have to keep fighting to get the truth out. I'll never stop, and neither should you.
I really love that message from him. And even we talked about Jess Michaels, one of the survivors, and she said, thank you, Aaron. Like, I think that's just so, this needs to be front and center because justice for survivors is so important. It's like the whole reason we're doing this, right, is justice for the survivors. But Aaron mentioned Maria Farmer's report was actually released in the file. So before we get into the legal consequences of this cover up, let's see how powerful it is when a survivor is actually proven right. So this is an interview with Annie Farmer. In 1996, her sister, Maria, who worked for Epstein at the time, discovered that he had stolen nude pictures of Annie and their younger sister. And so even though the DOJ didn't release like everything that they should have, they did release this file. The FBI complaint that Maria filed in 1996 was included in the documents that were released. And so this is actually Annie sharing just like the relief and the emotion that comes from finally seeing these documents and being vindicated.
There was a lot of anxiety coming into today for many of us survivors and that have been involved in this process. But I have to say, it has been an emotional day in a way that I was not expecting. My sister, Maria Farmer, reported Epstein and his crimes in 1996. We've been saying that over and over.
That's literally 30? It's been 30
Goodness
freaking years.
Gracious.
That Epstein has just been rolling over children when this could have been stopped 30 freaking years ago.
And then the FBI didn't do anything about it.
For 30 years.
That's horrible.
And over again. And part of what was released today was an official FBI form, and I think it was an FD 71, dated September 3rd, 1996.
This is actually, we have it. This is exactly what it looks like. So it says Jeffrey Epstein. It's the character of the use, which is CP. It says, complaint stated that she is a professional artist and took pictures of her sisters, 12 and 16, for her own professional artwork. Epstein then stole the photos and negatives and is believed to have sold the pictures to potential buyers. So everyone that said that it was just Epstein for his own personal use, that there was like no buyers, no trafficking, that is sex trafficking right there. That is the distribution of child porn, like of child essay material. Like that's what that is. That's what the allegation was. Epstein at the time requested, I'm assuming this is Annie's sister, Maria, to take pictures of young girls at swimming pools. So then he told her to go get more child essay material. Epstein is now threatening that if she tells anyone about the photos, he will burn her house down.
Oh, damn. That's a friggin' predator right there.
Oh my gosh. And this was September 3rd, 1996.
Guys.
This is, oh my gosh. Okay. Let's just get back to Annie.
Yeah.
With my sisters, some of my sisters' report, it was labeled under child pornography, and it described Epstein stealing photos of myself at the age of 16, of my younger sister who was 12 at the time. And just to see it in writing and to know that they had this document this entire time.
Yeah.
And how many people were harmed after that date. It just, we've been saying it over and over, but to see it in black and white that way has been very emotional. I'm with Maria today. I know she felt a tremendous amount of relief and redemption, but also sorrow in thinking about, people like Virginia Roberts Giuffre who are not here to see this and be a part of really forcing the government to be transparent finally about this case.
The only thing evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know if there were good men in this situation that did nothing, but the men did nothing.
Well, that's a bar. Man, and just her emotion over the fact that it's finally been proven that they were telling the truth the whole time. They had made this complaint, but then just her heartbreak for all the other survivors that were abused and exploited after her and her sister that may not have been if the government had actually just done their job and even just purely investigated it, right? That was an allegation that was, they needed to look at evidence in order to prosecute and all those kinds of things. But if they had actually done that, how many girls and kids would have been potentially saved from what they had to experience and so many others had to then experience. It's, oh my gosh.
Gosh, yeah. It's so infuriating to think about that.
Absolutely.
And so they released Annie's FBI report. And so the question is, why are they holding back from so many other survivors? Yeah. And so here's what Representative Thomas Massey, who actually helped write the Epstein Transparency Act, had to say about it.
Decades. That is wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up and If you're a party to that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up. Decades.
Yeah, I love that he just said, until then, this is a cover-up.
Absolutely. Because all the files can be released, but then if there's not actual like prosecution of those that participated in this abuse, then that's not actually justice. So the full transparency of the files, only redacting victim names, is like the first step in the process. Yeah. And I think it was interesting, the point that he made, that it's like, it might not be like all these politicians that we think of. It might actually be their donors. It might actually be the people that are allowing them to have the power that they have. And like, even that embarrassment piece, like not everyone listed in the files necessarily like abused kids. Like even Epstein's lawyer had to prove his innocence because he was found in some of those files. But even he thinks that if you're mentioned in those files, you should have to prove your innocence just like he did.
Dang.
And so like, that's just like the first step. And I loved just how like Macy just kind of like laid all of that out, because I think that's really the process. And he's just really this. And so he said that before the files were released / redacted and then released and then not all released. And then he reposted that after the cover-up was finally seen for what it was on the 19th.
So before we get into what everyone is missing about Epstein, and possibly the most dangerous part for everyday people like all of us, what happens from here? Well, Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, who wrote the Epstein Transparency Act together, shared the unique legal consequences Congress can take because the Epstein Transparency Act is actually law and not a request or subpoena. And so let's check out what they had to say.
Okay. What are you going to do about it to force them to comply? I mean, can you do anything?
Oh, absolutely. Look, people have talked about, and by the way, Todd Blanche is the face of this, but it's really the Attorney General's office, Pam Bondi, who is responsible. And there are several ways to get at this. Some take longer, some are shorter. The quickest way, and I think most expeditious way to get justice for these victims, is to bring inherent contempt against Pam Bondi. And that does.
So he's talking about going directly after the Attorney General, which is like top legal dog, like in the whole entire country. And inherent contempt means a couple different things, but it means that it could be anything from like fines all the way to potential like jail time.
That's gnarly.
So that's pretty crazy. And he says that's like the quickest way.
Doesn't require going through the courts, and give her, and basically Ro Khanna and I are talking about and drafting that right now.
Okay, well, I mean, on another network this morning, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine said impeachment or contempt, it is premature, Congressman Khanna. And the Deputy Attorney General said, bring it on. They don't seem to be taking...
So I watched that clip where they said, bring it on. Like they're asking him about like, hey, like this is a violation of the law. Like there could be consequences. And he's like, bring it. We're following the law. We've done everything right. And I'm like, I'm not sure if like anyone in America agrees with you right now, except for yourselves on that.
Yeah, because they were all supposed to be released with only victims' info redacted.
Yep.
And they were not all released with most of it redacted.
Exactly.
That does not sound like what the law was.
No.
Taking this very seriously. And if you just don't have the math in the Senate, including at least now this Democratic senator not being convinced, doesn't that sort of show that you're at the limit of pressure?
No, we only need the House for inherent contempt, and we're building a bipartisan coalition, and it would fine Pam Bondi for every day that she's not releasing these documents. I'll tell you why.
Okay, so he mentioned fines there. So we'll see. I'm sure they're like drafting the inherent contempt like documentation. Yeah. And then I think they went on recess like the day before the Epstein transparency. Like
Interesting
before the
timing there.
Interesting timing. So I think they reconvene like in January. And so I'm sure like all of that will come back out in January, and we'll see exactly what they're going going after her for in January, if it's going to be fines or if it's also going to be more than that.
I've talked to the survivors why this is such a slap in the face. One of the survivors said they released her name accidentally, but they still have not released the FBI file about the people who abused her at her request. And
at her request, they still can't get their freaking files, and it's their own files. This is so messed up.
The problem here is that there are rich and powerful people. We all know this. There are 1,200 victims. They're rich and powerful people who either engaged in this abuse, covered it up, or were on this island. And what the American people want to know is, who are these people? And instead of holding them accountable, Pam Bondi is breaking the law. And this is the corrupt system, the Epstein class that people are sick of. So I believe we're going to get bipartisan support in holding her accountable
and bipartisan too. Like Thomas Massey is Republican, Ro Khanna is a Democrat. So even in like this whole entire like Epstein Transparency Act, we have like a bipartisan, like it's
unified front on it.
A unified front, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Committee of Congress should determine whether these redactions are justified or not.
Sometime.
Oh man, like this could be really interesting. We're gonna see what happens. I hope that they like hold to their word and really like push for it. And they've been talking mad game on Twitter, so or on X. So I think that it sounds like they will. It sounds like they're going to do everything that they possibly can, but it could be anywhere from fines all the way to jail time. And I think they can go after, I could be wrong on this, but to my understanding, they can go after anyone within like the DOJ, so the Department of Justice. So like Pam Bondi is kind of like head of that. But then you've got, is it Blanche that's under her, like her deputy? I think they could go after like Kash Patel. Like I think they can go after anyone that had a hand in this. I could be wrong on that, but because this is a law and not just like a request for a subpoena or things like that, like the DOJ can't like be like, oh, we need more time, or, you know, it's like, no, this is the law and now there's consequences to the law. And it sounds like they don't have to go through a court process either. Like Congress can just like do their thing as long as like they have that bipartisan support like he was talking about. So definitely want to pray for justice and accountability in this situation because it's been way too long coming.
Way too long. Yeah. And so what is the most dangerous thing that people are missing when it comes to the Epstein case? Well, it's honestly the fact that most trafficking is not done by the elites of society. They're everyday people just like you and me.
Yep.
And so we want to continue to fight for justice in this case by engaging our civic system and our duties and putting pressure on our representatives for the full release of the files and for the prosecution of the abusers. Like all that needs to happen. But for the everyday people like you and I who can't do much more than that, the biggest miss with Epstein is if we think that it's only about the elites of society.
Yeah, because most traffickers are everyday people like you and I. But Epstein and Maxwell, they recruited, they manipulated, they controlled victims the exact same way that every single trafficker does. And guess what? There are Epsteins and Maxwell's online right now using the same methods to target and exploit our kids every single day. Like we now know that 1 in 5 kids are victims of digital exploitation, sextorting them with real and fake nudes. And just like Epstein and Maxwell, traffickers make these amazing job offers that only end up in selling their victims' bodies. We also know that traffickers use the Loverboy method to trick and control their victims. And so fighting for justice in the Epstein case is necessary because the survivors deserve it. But we will continue to leave ourselves and our kids vulnerable to exploitation if we are only hyper-fixated on the corruption of society's elite and don't pay attention to the predator literally living down the street who's hitting up our kids on Roblox and Instagram.
And so this is exactly why we created our free Red Flags program, so you can spot the trafficking schemes of both the elite and the ordinary traffickers that they use every single day. And so if these dynamics were understood by most Americans in the early 90s, in the 2000s, we may have seen justice for Epstein survivors decades ago. Like that could have changed the game. And like Annie said, maybe even save hundreds more from being exploited in the first place. And so now is the time to prevent the next generation from ever experiencing injustice again.